moving.
In this video, we dive into the movie The Wicked for good. We will discuss the storyline, summarize the plot, and explore the cast and character. Additionally, we will cover the movie's production details and box office performance. Finally, we will provide reviews and share personal reactions. So let's get started. Wicked for Good passes the most successful movie for one of Universal's highest grossing franchise in the all-time domestic charts. The Broadway adaptation sequel is winding down its theatrical run, having been released on digital just before the new year. But Tenenbaum's Wicked for Good has to date grossed $508 million worldwide, while 2024's Wicked grossed more than $750 million, following its record-breaking opening weekend. Wicked for Good's box office safety declined. Now Deadline reports that Wicked for Good grossed $970K domestically on Wednesday, 33% from Tuesday, then an additional $1.1 million on Thursday, plus 21% from Thursday, bringing its weekly total up to $10.2 million and its total domestic gross to $336 million in its 6 week in theater. On Universal Pictures' all-time domestic box office chart, this movie figured for Good up to number 14 swapping places with the 2015 Minion, which grossed 36,000 domestically and $1.1 million worldwide. This is the first installment in the spin-off series of Despicable, the entire Despicable Me. Minions franchise has grossed $5.6 million worldwide. Despicable Me 2 and 4 are currently number 10 and 11, respectively, at the Universal's all-time domestic box office, while Minion is the sixth highest grossing movie worldwide ever. The first weekend is the company's third highest grossing movie domestically after 2023, The Super Mario Bros. Movie in 2015, Jurassic World, numbers 19 worldwide, with its domestic gross hovering around $1 million daily and nearing the end of its theatrical run. Wicked for Good probably is not going to hit many more box office milestones. The Part 2 movie saw on an overall has reception than its predecessor, with a 67% Rotten Tomato score in comparison to Wicked 88%, while the audience's score are 93% versus 95%. There was still a lot of praise for the lead performances by Erivo and Ariana Grande, who have both secured Golden Globes nomination for the second year running. A win for either of them won't boost Wicked for Good's box office if it is no longer in theater. Wicked for also stars Jonathan Bailey, Ethan Sattler. Universal certainly invited backlash when it released the first Wicked film on digital barely a month into its theatrical release. It was speculated that the studio left quite a substantial amount of money on the table within a move, which had theater that earned millions through online purchases and until in time for the new year. Universal appeared to be developing a similar strategy with Wicked for Good, which is slated to debut at home on Tuesday, around 40 days after debuting theatrically in November. Some wondered if the sequel could hit the coveted $1 billion market at the global box office after the cultural phenomenon that the first film became. But it also reviews and a shrug of the indifference from international audiences. The new movie is trailing the first film by a whopping $250 million at the global box office. Wicked for Good passed the $500 million mark globally. His past weekend of this total $331 million has come from domestic theater. It should be noted that the first weekend earned around $60 million more domestically after being launched on digital, which suggests that the sequel might hit the $350 million mark after all. The first weekend concluded its run with a staggering $475 million domestically and nearly $760 million worldwide. It earned spectacular review and scored 10 nominations at the Academy Award, including in the Best Picture category. Stars Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande were also nominated for their performances. Directed by John M. Cho, the movie is currently sitting on a certified fresh 88% score on an aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, which is far superior to the 67% score that Wicked for Good seemed to have settled at. Also directed by Cho, the sequel holds an encouraging 93% audience score on the aggregator, which bodes well for its future on home video. The Wicked movie are based on the hit Broadway musical of the same name, which was based on the Gregory 1994 novel, which itself was inspired by the Wizard of Oz books by L. Frank Baum. Wicked for Good is currently the fifth biggest movie of the year at the domestic box office, behind Universal's own Jurassic World Rebirth. The year's top grossing hit remains a Minecraft movie, with $428 million in the bank. All of these hits will likely to be overtaken by James' Fire and Ash, which is shaping up to become one of the biggest hits of all time. A key Wicked for Good, the latest scene has been released. The second movie adapting the beloved Broadway musical came to theater on November 21 and has gone on to gross nearly $500 million worldwide. Now ahead of For Good being available to rent or watch at home as of December 31, Entertainment Tonight has debuted a deleted scene featuring Elphaba. The scene is a new flashback montage the character's time as student at Victoria's University. The five friends are seen laughing as they race away from the school and into the country for a picnic while the tune of the dancing crow live play in the background. This includes a much hyper-deleted amount of the Pharaoh and Bog being shirtless as the two characters shop wood. Beyond Glanta, Jana Fox how to tell a unique love story, whether it should be about the love between an off-kilter young woman with additions for Dalmatians and her fabrics, or as her latest movie called for, two women reconciling with their friendship after parting ways during a visit to the Emerald City. In Wicked, for Good, the sequel to the on-screen musical adaptation, Wicked, All Good Deeds Must Come to an End, directed by John M. and co-written by Fox and Vinnie Holzman. The film picks up right after Alphaba, designation as the victim which of the West has been unfairly thrust upon her, as she is forced to be left in exile after threatening to overthrow the wizard. Meanwhile, Galencha Grand has become a more basis for good in the Emerald City as a country to sustain herself on the perk of the popularity and the charm of her beauty, much to the charging for her fierce Pharaoh. As the dangers engage, the pair have to work through their differences to restore justice in the land of Oz. Considering the source material pulled from Wicked second act in the stage musical, which runs a child 45 minutes, Fox and Houseman had to work together to bolster the script for a longer cinematic adventure lasting 2 hours and 15 minutes. Horsemen had to work together to bolster the script for a longer cinematic adventure lasting 2 hours and 15 minutes. This vast expansion created a creative challenge and a push to add a more powerful and dynamic friendship to the woman at the center. Elphaba and Glinda. We had to create a lot of new material for this one and really big dig into the without. In any way, upsetting the fans who seem to feel that wicked. The play is there, which is wonderful. I love that you feel that, but you have to honor that. You have to not mess with what you consider to be their Bible. You have to create new stuff in a way that makes the stuff feel supported. Fox explained to Deadline. Everything we did was about their friendship because the North Star of our development on a film was constantly saying, "It's about you guys, stupid." We literally had a code on all our computers that said that. Fox explained to Deadline, everything we did was about their friendship because the North Star of our development on a film was constantly saying, "It's about you girl, stupid." We literally had a code on all our computers that said that. And so anytime we were like, "It's about the animal." But how are the animal also about the girls? Or how is fear about the girl? Or how is Nisa about the Elphaba? It was always about figuring out how to make any instruction lead back to the dam. Below Fox breaks down weaving now narrative. The mischievous conclusion of Act for good and how he's helped polish up one most dynamic friendship in pop culture history. I am very emotional, so it's hard for me to pace out better. I am emotional because White for good itself is so emotional. Or if I am 10 times more emotional because it was 5 years of my life. We spent our years war intensively writing board script every second of every day, and then some more time after that. This all feels really powerful. Having done that with your friends, when it comes to John M, I am the luckiest person in the world that he has worked with me more than once. We worked together before, worked on Home Before Dark, and the experiences of working with him is so amazing that I told him I would do anything with him for the rest of my life. I could not believe he invited me to be a part of making this movie with him. Stefan and the amazing Vinnie Holzman. Every day we came with so much hope and optimism, and with the hardest work ethic we could muster. Because we cared so much about these movies, we know how much the fans cared about it. What a profound legacy this was, how easy it was to screw it up, and how impossible it was to get it right. And we just determined to work as hard as we could to try to get it right. So, I am feeling very emotional because I was working with my real friends, like editor Maroon Scarston and DP Alice Brook, who I have worked with before. It feels really emotional to be letting your baby go out into the world. The second movie was so difficult to make in good way. In a challenging way that was exciting to all of us because it's a 45 minute second act of a play that's designed to be the ending of a thing that you just saw. The second movie is 2 hours and 15 minutes long, so we had to create a lot of new material for this one and really dig deep into it without, in any way, upsetting the fans who seem to feel that weight. The place there, which is wonderful. I love that they feel that. But you have to honor that. You have to not mess with that, what they consider to be their Bible. You have to create new stuff in a way that makes that stuff feel supported. And I think the film feels surprisingly because you genuinely don't know. And if you have seen the play, there's a whole lot of movie that you don't know what's going to happen. So I am excited for people to experience that. I wasn't precious about anything. I think I was the one who suggested putting Galanta in the Wonderful. Rishi was never a part of indie play. So I said, this is a 2 hour movie. And these are the stars of the movie. And you are not in it enough together. We are going to die if they are in the movie that they are in this play. There is no way we are going to make it. So I suggested to the chance and there were gasps across the yard. People fell out of frame on the Zoom. But then it was thankfully to Stefan and Viney for being too open and so wonderful. They were like, that's a great idea. Let's do that. And thank God they were such incredible collaborators because they could suggest these sort of unholy things. And they were open to them and ran with them. My takeaway from the whole project is that I will never forget my collaboration with Viney. There is something so powerful and Elphaba and Glinda's friendship in Wake. For good that just not quite as dynamic in the play. No shade, but in the film it's more palpable. That will be conversation about this. I think why you are feeling that, and I am glad you were feeling that is because that's exactly what we were focused on when we were breaking the second movie. We all know the song for good. It's a banger. That's a song you are really going to care about. That's the one that's going to rip your heart out. And so everything we did was to bolster their relationship before that song. So that when they're using that song, you are feeling the absolute maximum you can be feeling. So some of that had to do with the going back to the beginning of the second movie and basically showing what the status quos were like. But in a way that, even they were not together, you got a sense that they were pulled toward each other. They were still thinking about each other. For example, like all of that cross-cutting stuff where you see Elphaba is still holding onto the thing that Glinda gave her, or her thinking about when she asked Glinda to come with her to the Emerald City. All of that was an eye towards bolstering the friendship. Because if you think about it, and we're absolutely to share to the play, Winnie and Stefan speak of this always. They say, we just had to be so short and summarize everything and flip it more than we wanted to. So for them, this was an amazing opportunity to expand. But everything we did was about their friendship because the north star of our development on the film was constantly saying, "It's about a girl, stupid." We literally had a code on all our computers that said that. And so many times we were like, it's about the animal, but how are the animal also body girl? Or how is Pharaoh body girl? Or how is Nisa about Elphaba? It was always about figuring out how to make any instruction lead back to them. It was really about making sure that when you get to Forgout, you feel like you have been on this incredible epic journey. Because actually, if you break it down, they had a light relationship. The time does not give you that level of depth. So we had to make sure you feel it in the film. A scene I can't stop thinking about in the way Glenja has to process running away with Elphaba. At first, she is angry and hurt, rightfully so. The latter in that moment where Elphaba and Glinda confront each other and Pharaoh runs in to save Elphaba at the cost of his own life. And he is so desperate to save her that he puts the gun to Glinda's face. Glinda calls him on his bluff, but this is the first time they have interacted since he ran away. And Glinda realizes she can't hate Pharaoh for leaving her anymore after he sees that he really loves Elphaba. And then there is the apology Pharaoh gives Glinda. There is so much happening in the span of like 5 or so minutes. I love it. The way Glinda's gun and he's like, I am calling your bluff. Bro, I know you are not pulling the trigger. Kills me. I have to give props to the extraordinary actor and to John in the way they solid all this moment. Ariana is so heartbreaking in that moment. You can see what she's thinking, and you know what she's thinking. I love Elphaba, and why is that complicating this situation so much for me? How come I can't just be made Pharaoh? Why can't I just hear him? And it's because he loves Elphaba. And she realizes so does she, so she understands what it means to love her and want to protect her. It's heartbreaking thing. And Jonathan Bailey saying, I am so sorry. Our national treasure, that guy. Give him all the stuff. I love him and he is incredible. The way he managed that apology to her. And he is so sorry that he can't feel the feelings he wanted him to feel. But wait, the other thing that kills me that's when Elphaba gives Glinda the Grimier and Glinda finally says, You know, I can't read that. I died. To me, the performances and the fact that she says that and has a moment. That is her deepest shame. In the film, we created a scene where you see her as child, her deep want and need, and the original one she was, and you understand how hard it is for Glinda to say she can't access that magic. That's the hardest thing for her to say and admit. The fact that she admitted to me is why I think she here earns the Grimiers open to her at the end of the film, which is also not in the play. Winnie and I are desperate for all that to be open to everyone else's interpretation. And we love how much people feel like they can find themselves in these movies. And they can figure out whether they think it means this or that. And at the end, when Elphaba smiles and you can't tell, it's like, did she open it for her? Does she know that it opened for her? Did she feel it opening for her? What is that? That should be everyone's moment to decide how they want it to be and how they feel about it. I guess is just thinking about that ending. I love it so much. The whole thing was such a fun, creative challenge. But I think for me, personally, I have been in this industry a long time. There are unbelievable amount of hard time, trauma and the bleeding all over script pages every day. But I have developed a sense of what structure should feel like. And for me, structure is nothing more than a character experiencing an emotional journey. And do you feel what you are supposed to feel as an audience member as that character is experiencing that emotional journey? So for me, the most exciting thing was the opportunity to try to take something that was fundamentally built to be ending. The conclusion, the experiences if you are just would make this second act into a movie. These experiences of watching this movie would be so bonker. You would settle down and you would try to take your first bite of popcorn, and you wouldn't be too or react breaking out the movie on page 90. But the shit has a really fun, and then you would bowl a train until the end of the movie, and it would be over 45 minutes later. So obviously, that's not the feeling of watching whole movie and having movie stand on its own. We were really intent on making these movie stand on their own. Basically, we said to ourselves we want people who have never seen the musical to like them. Alright, it's so nuts. Where are you doing here is similar to what he did. I was poking this hole and being like, does he seem bonkers that Fioro is doing this thing in this moment? How can we show his state of mind when he talked to Glinda at the beginning of Thanks Goodness? How can we show that yes, he's playing that part, but he's a way more comfortable with the part and Glinda is when we catch up with him. He's already been marinating on. I have got to find Elphaba because if someone else does, they are going to be kill her. He is still thinking about her. And Glinda is still thinking about her, but she's more committed to this glamorous life because she likes the park and is not willing to walk away from them. So we started looking for Fiaro and trying to make his journey not seem totally banker, and of course, Johnny Bailey is a genius. What John loved about the idea was that we thought we were so lucky that Universal was allowing us to have this big of a canvas for what is fundamentally a story about a woman and their friendship. It's not that they gave us the amount of space to make this epic because what we loved about the opening was that it set a tone for the superhero-esque movie. These women are superhero. Elphaba is a superhero, but Glenda, you are watching the origin story of her real superhero moment. So when Glenda puts on that ground at the end, you could have heard a score that was emotional, slow steering. But that piece of score that happened, there is a killer. It's like she is Indiana Jones. She's going to battle, and you just don't get a lot of that for a female character. I love that John had a vision to see that, and having Universal sport it was amazing. That was a fun scenario to recreate as well. Recently, I was getting the script ready for sending it to the academy and things like that for consideration. And I just looked at that specific section and realized initially something pumped for me in that moment when she said the line. My desire is so fired, you still the day I die. And then she says, and in my mind, I am like, girl, he's out there. Don't tell him to run, get him. So there is something a little odd for me about it. But then, when I was looking back at the script, and actually in the original script, she tells the animal to run because she's trying to help the animals get away. And again, I think they use it well by having her say that to him. It feels more powerful in some way that she's telling him to run because she's going to try to kick his butt. I don't think there's anything that I wish we would had not cut because everything we cut. I felt we cut for exactly the right reason. There are some beautiful things I am sure will be in the deleted scene. Perhaps there is a scene that I don't know if I will be included. There was a scene between the Fioro and Glinda that we cut in which they kissed. It was romantic and beautiful, but a little too passionate scene that made it too hard to watch him make the choice he made to be with Elphaba and made it too hard to make it okay that Elphaba ran off with him. It was like a feeling that he really did love her, which he does care about Glinda a lot, don't get me wrong, but he likes her in a different way. But this scene was so romantic, so it was like, we can't know that because then our brain will explode when he does not choose her in the end, and then we will have Elphaba, Glinda and Fioro. So I think it was a good cut because it was too adorable that you simply could not handle it. This movie is a very difficult movie to say whose idea that was that because it was all such the most beautiful collaboration and every single person in it did so much to make it what it was. The whisper in the script was always a last moment in a many written draft. And I am a mushball who wanted it to have a happy ending. And everyone was like, no girl, it has to end the way it's going to end. And I was like, because I loved him and I want them to be together. There was a lot of negotiating between wanting to respect the bittersweet nature of the fact that they really are not going to see each other again. Well, I would be honored if anyone asked me to be part of victory. And I think that they are such beloved character that seeing what they were up to, I mean to me, the moment when Elphaba says in voiceover, I know she can never know that we are alive. I was like somebody feels like they are asking to find out they are alive at some point. Elphaba and Glinda's emotional journey reached a conclusion with Wait for Good, reshaping the status quo for Rose and teaching everyone about the value of friendship and goodness. Adapting the second half of the Broadway musical, the sequel to 2024's Victories, Erivo and Ariana characters fight for a better future for themselves and their fellow Ocean, filled with even more song. Wait for Good's final revolves around Glinda standing against the wizard and Elphaba realizing that there is nothing left for her to do to help Ozzy. This as an emotional conclusion remains just our wizard of Ozzy ending. Where the wizard West of the West dies, Glinda takes power and Ozzy is saved by Dorothy. The big twist of the wicked for good is that Elphaba did not die as all of Ozzy, including Glinda believe, changing the character's fate in the Wizard of Ozzy. The wicked witch of the West is revealed to have faked her death at Dorothy Gale's hand. This is done by using Ocean's belief that water will kill her, as Elphaba feels a bucket to be used against her before even gets to the Kyamoko. Once again, his girl throws a water toward the green-skinned witch. She fakes melting and slips into one of the secret passageways hidden in the floor of the castle. Elphaba only reveals that she is a alive once pharaoh, who has been transformed into the Scarecrow. He helps set his plan into motion by having Castry fly to Elphaba with a message about his death, the approaching attackers, and seemingly a suggestion to hide in the castle until he gets there. The reason why Elphaba makes this decision is that she's come to be accept that Ozzy will never truly accept her and listen to what she says. Despite her incredible power, she's been made into a villain figure who Ozians will not get behind. She heads to the advice of and the other animal that the land will never be safe as long as he is around. As a result, Elphaba shifted her plan so that Glinda can enact the right changes. She will have an easier time transforming Ozzy and restoring the land to how it should be thanks to her public standing. And with Glinda wanting to go down her brother, her new perspective of stepping outside her bubble work with Elphaba dreams. One of the final moments of the Wicked for Good is the Glinda's Emerald City with a book after Elphaba gave her the magical item and told her she will need to learn how to read it. To her surprise, she suddenly sees the flipping open and landing on the page of spell. Since Glinda cannot do magic, why the book open for her in this moment is curious, and there are a few different potential explanations. The first is that he has recognized the change in Glinda that was recently occurred, with her no longer acting in her own self-interest. This could be a moment when it magically mysterious book grant had the ability to use it. The Wicked movies have shown the spellbook flip open on its own at time, going to be pages that are connected to what a person wants. Glinda Way may be getting the power she is desperately wanted her entire life, now that she has embarrassed being good. Elphaba's connection to the Greymares open another possibility, even if she is not nearby. Could he wish have opened the book, knowing that Glinda would be near it? If this is the case, then this could be Elphaba's way of cleverly telling Glinda that her friend is still alive. However, this would go against some of Elphaba's final word. as he acknowledged to Pharaoh that she not one can know they are both alive, including Glinda's favor. May the damn theme of friendship represent in this story, and it's a strong bond found between the two women. Elphaba might have considered her decision to give her friend some comfort. Wicked for good and with Elphaba and Pharaoh together, as they have left the land of Ozi behind. They are shown traversing through a barren, windy, and mysterious location. Where Elphaba and Pharaoh have gone is not officially known by them. It's only known as the place beyond Ozi. This information comes thanks to the Elphaba's conversation with the animals trying to leave Ozi under the yellow brick road. Unfortunately, there are no details about where the romantic couple has gone in the books or musical, as the letter typically only shows them going to an unspecified location. With Elphaba gone, Glinda takes it upon herself to bring Ozzy back to a place of glory. She sends the wizard away from revealing to him that Elphaba was his daughter. Moribel is then thrown into the prison for her evil scheme, with the wizard killing and so on. This leaves a vacancy for power in Ozzy that Glinda steps into the promising to all Ozian, human and animal, that she will live up to her. Glinda, the good name at last. She fulfills the Elphaba plan to allow animal to freely be part of society. Once more, as they are shown living in the Emerald City, Dilmont even going back to take a university. The Cowardly Lion and the Bog Post and Man transformation play a minor role on screen in Wicked. For good and they are last seen in the Emerald City as the wizard live in this hot air balloon. The movie does not clarify exact what happened to this trio, a Wizard of Oz character. Based on the source material, Dorothy goes home to be Canis. Even some Ozians believe that she examined the Cowardly Lion story continue in the book, with him eventually becoming the throne minister of Ozi. Meanwhile, Bok is not present in any future stories, part of the Wicked Revenge series. So where does this leave the future of the Wicked franchise? It would be the understandable to plant seed for future adventure. In Oz just in case there is enough demand to see more after Wicked. For good and extend the tale beyond that the musical showed. The truth is that Wicked for Good does not really set up Wicked 3 in proper way. Elphaba and Glinda live on as usual, giving the franchise the freedom to bring back either or both characters in the future. However, this is the end of the story as told as Broadway, as surely separate. But Wicked for Good benefit from being a part instead of a true sequel. Ultimately, they tell one story. You can't really know how you feel about the project until you have seen the whole thing. Mind you, this is the lesser of the two halves. It addresses none of the first movie's flaw, while finding a couple new ones to add to mix. Given I feel much the same way about Act I and Joe at the stage production, I was not all that surprised, but it delivers on the emotional promises of part 1, basking in its glow rather than lurking in its shadow. For Good picks up years after the first film's rousing final, in which Elphaba, Cynthia Erivo sing defying gravity as she aligns herself against the Wizard of Oz, who she discovered was behind the growing persecution of animals. She exists now as public enemy, formerly branded the Wicked Witch of the West by Madame Moribel and her propaganda machine. Of a secret home in the forest, she decided to reserve efforts wherever she can, but is slowly losing the way of public opinion. Glinda Ariana Grande, meanwhile, has stepped into the role of Elphaba opposite. Glinda the Good, her life is all about keeping up appearances. From finding magical power with the wizard, back to the announcing an engagement to Prince Pharaoh, now a captain leading the task force to capture the Wicked Witch. Her love for him is genuine, but even he agrees to marry her. She cannot escape the sense that his heart is not really in it. The two friends struggle in their life apart from each other. And the movie then Elphaba opening return a chain building the yellow brick yacht via forced animal labor is visually quite rough. The two friends struggle in their lives apart from each other. And the movie's rhythm, Elphaba's opening raid on a team building the yellow brick road via forced animal labor is visually quite rough. Bringing to mind right off the bat the Christmas, some head of the first movie's aesthetic approach. The socio-political execution of Ozzy is not rendered with much more depth than in the staged musical, nor does the film do much with the passage of time that would make the immersion in this world especially interesting. This was few minutes getting off to a noticeably streaky start. The next chapter in the story of Nessarose, now governor of the Anbok, who she keeps with her by any means necessary. Rescue scenes of by director Johan M. films The Train Man sequences with the same, almost surprising intensity as the flying monkey attack in Wicked Part 1, and it better than anything establishes C. Dorker tone for good. Wicked is really the story of the unlikely and life-changing friendship between these two women, and shows adaptations succeed because of how well it tapped into the emotional current. Once Gee's relationship retake center stage, the film's pull is practically irresistible. Erivo and Grande get to deeper than stellar work from the first movie as their character generally warn each other, less out of malice than out of the circumstances, and have to grapple with how distant their bond. The tension of this political struggle has actual left. Both get more chances to shine in a musical number as well. Her defining rendition of the wizard and joy. And I was no good that is the standout, and benefit from show's most impactful singing, and for good their duet is just as a beautifully young sung and loaded with feeling. It will, I think, have lasting power on its own term. But there is something special about experiencing it on screen after having lived through wicked process tour. Our month of the shared interview, Grant and Arivo have looked at each other in the same loving, teary-eyed way, but that connection makes their performances that much more touching. Wicked Fargo does stumbles at various points. The much-touted new songs by returning songwriter Stephen are superfluous, and there is a laughable, regrettable decision near the end involving Jeff Goldblum that only avoids disaster by being very brief. But all the same, magic that powered the first film is still at work in this one. If you are inclined to be swept away by the elaborate costumes and sets, engrossing group number, March of the Witch Hunter is another winner, and infectious energy, there is nothing here that will put too much of a dent in your good time. It won the Academy Award for Best Production Design, and if the existence of the limited edition Wicked embossed leaked US Dutch events, it probably moved a lot of the merchandise. Wicked is an enormously popular multimedia franchise with millions of fans around the world and over the rainbow. But I feel extremely comfortable seeing my two daughters, aged 9 and 8 years old, are in the top 5% of obsessive Wicked super nerd. They have Wicked dolls and brooms and pointy hair. They sing Wicked songs while changing their room, or driving to visit their grandparent, or pretty much anytime there are 6 or 7 consecutive quiet seconds in our house. My youngest had a Wicked-themed birthday party when she was 6 a year before the hit Broadway musical about the wishes of Ozzy became a movie. They performed What Is This Feeling together at a school's talent show last spring in costume and green face paint. They saw Wicked for good on November 17, 2025, exactly 1 year from when they saw Wicked. In the 365 days in between, I doubt if I went by without some sort of the acknowledgement of the movies or the show or the Wizard of Oz. So while I have my own thought about the sequel's quality, the review I most wanted to hear is there. Now that the makers are starting to get older, I love taking them to press the screenplay with me, and even more than that. I love talking to them afterwards about the movies we see. Our conversations are so fun and interesting that I have begun recording them at first, now with their full knowledge and sharing them. What follows is lightly edited transcript with some spoilers direct of the conversation between me, the girls and my wife, who is the only person I know who enjoys Wicked more than our daughter. They had to get from somewhere, right? Dad, so what do you think of the movie? 8-year-old. Great. Would you rather watch the first or the second movie again? Elphaba Trop is in hiding after defying the Wizard of Oz and escaping Madame Moribel. Attempt to capture her, determined to bring the wizard on and expose him as a fraud, as well as battling for the right of the speaking animal. Banished from Oz, Elphaba is attempted back to the Emerald City by Glinda. When she realizes that the wizard is still up to do no good, in partnership with the Madame Moribel, Elphaba resumes her quest, putting her life and the life of those she loves in grave danger. Wicked was a box office sensation when it was released in 2024. Fans of the long-running Broadway and West End musical flocked to see it in cinema, and it took us a staggering $758 million at a global box office. Those familiar with the musical found lots to enjoy. The director John M. sang mostly faithful to the iconic song but fleshing out the Wicked but to offer a broader and more in-depth look. Critics sharpened their nave, ultimately missing the point of the film adaptation. So it's no surprise the review were mixed when Wicked. For good conclusion, the story arrived in cinema last November. Now Wicked for good to buy and rent digitally, ahead of the physical release later the year. And it's fair to say if you are not a Wicked fan and you don't like the first film, you are not going to like this one. Wicked for good speak up after Elphaba show stopping rendition of Defying Gravity, and it's darker film than the previous one. Some say that the second half of the Wicked musical is not as strong as the first, but I would argue that is not true. Wicked for good set rips away the sheen and pleasantries that dominate the first half of the story as Elphaba, and Glinda go on transformative journey. For Elphaba, Elphaba dropped in his hiding after defying the Wizard of Oz and escaping Madame Moribel's attempt to capture her, determined to bring the wizard on and expose him as a fraud, as well as battling for the right after speaking animals banished from Oz. Elphaba is tempted back to the Emerald City by Glinda. When she realizes that the wizard is still up to no good, in partnership with Madame Moribel, Elphaba resumes her quest, putting her life and the lives of those she loves in grave danger. Wicked was a box office sensation when it was released in 2024. Fans of the long-running Broadway and West End musical flocked to see it in cinema, and it took a staggering $758 million at the global box office. Those familiar with the musical found lots to enjoy. The directors Johanna sing mostly faithful to the iconic song but fleshing out the Wicked world so after a broader and more in-depth look. Critics sharpened their knife, ultimately missing the point of the film adaptation, so it's no surprise the review were mixed when Wicked for good. The conclusion of the story arrived in cinema last November. Now Wicked for Good is available to buy and run digitally, ahead of the physical release later this year. And it's fair to say if you are not a Wicked fan or you did not like the first film, you are not going to like this one. Wicked for Good picks up the Elphaba show-stopping rendition of Defying Gravity, and it's a darker film than the previous one. Some said that the second half with the Wicked musical is not as strong as the first, but I would argue that is not true. Wicked for good strip away with shame and pleasantries and dominate the first half of the story. As Elphaba and Glinda go on transformative journey. For Elphaba, she realizes that she can't sell her soul to the wizard and go along with his deception, while Glinda has to come to terms with not having magic but acting as a some screen for Madame Morrible. There are complexities within beauty of the woman's stories. Elphaba has become enraged for her sister Nessarose, who is essentially holding back, against his will, hoping that he will love her. Glinda is preparing to marry Pharaoh, unaware that his heart belonged not to her, but to Elphaba, both of these storyline after plenty of soul searching. But it's Glinda that goes on to the biggest journey, realizing that he can't always get everything she wants and there is more to the world than her need. It's a harsh lesson to learn and is perfectly captured in A Girl in a Bubble, one of the two new songs featured in the film. Some criticism leveled at the film's attack is pacing, but I think the film builds nicely. It feels like the world we know from the first film, but the rocket tone gives away to a more recent story that is punctuated by drama, surprises, and plenty of emotion. By the time Elphaba and Glinda come together to sing for good, I was a puzzle to be honest. Those hoping to get a good look at Broadway girl may come away disappointed. Disney is the film along with her companion, but her role is a very much fleeting. The songs are brought to life fantastically in Wicked for Good. As Long as You Are Mine, sang by Elphaba and Pharaoh, is one of my favorite and the scene in the film is powerful and emotional. My standout of is No Good Dead, which Avery performs as Elphaba with incredible gusto, showing herself to be a true powerhouse performer and an incredible actress. No Place Like Home is the other new song in the film, sung by Elphaba, and its film fits in well with the rest of the song that fans will already know. The Grammy soundtrack for most people will be for good, and Erivo and Grant make it a very emotional affair. The scene in the movie is beautiful, heartbreaking, and cathartic. Erivo and Grant continue to impress with their acting ability. Erivo evokes a quiet power that builds over the course of the film, perfectly demonstrating the Elphaba's growth from a shy and quiet to a woman who knows how to use the power she's been course of the film, perfectly demonstrating the Elphaba's growth from shy and quiet to a woman who knows how to use the power she's been gifted. Grant leans into the comedy side of Glinda where she can, but she is required to showcase a wider range of emotion across the film. And she does so impressively. Jonathan Bailey gets more to do in the film too, and he really is establishing himself as one of the best actors to come out of UK year. Wicked for Good is everything that fans want it to be and more. The songs are spectacular, the performances are excellent, and the visuals are stunning. Yes, the film is on the long side, but it did not lose my attention for a minute. Now that Wicked for Good is available to buy, I can't wait to watch both films in this setting and really immerse myself in the whole experiences. This is the kind of film that cinema was made for, and is a triumphant adaptation of a beloved musical that lives up to all expectations. Last year, Wicked had to briefly allowed more than just Gravity. John M. first film which adapted the 2003 musical by Stephens and Vinnie Holzman, which is then adapted in the 1995 book by Cara Gray, which offered an alternate history to El. Frank 1900, the wonderful wizard, of Aussie mythology had to take an critics, scenic, and flying monkey spectacle. That is said wisdom goes that musical earn our hits in modern era. Our theatre kids even a box office demographic anymore. Yet against our odds it was a sensation, bringing his experiences on in the height and step up to turn a somewhat minimalist Broadway show into a explosion of the color and pizzazz. Built by Kenny Gosling, Ariana Grande, we held space. Now turn to finish the story. In a sequel filmed concurrently with the first film. Wicked for Good trumps the second half of this year's show we have. In fact, had a 12-month long interval, and in a story after half. To borrow the footballing glitches, this is weaker of the two sadder, more understated, a lower percentage of banker, and are going out on the literal high of defying gravity. As the first half first film does, the ads are stuck against gain, and practices are out in force. Perhaps conscious of this, Joe starts with a bang, the opening of Wicked. For Good is packed with more pageantry pep and firework pops than an LCD trip in an Emerald City nightclub. It has been some years since I went out the last film, and everyone has moved on. Galinda is now a force in OC, a celebrity figure. Fiona now promoted to captain of the adaptation green jacketed Wizards Guard. Their relationship is carefully staged, managed by the PR mechanism of Madame Morrible, and signed off by the big dog himself, the self-styled wizard, who seemed more interested in the model train than his quasi fascinating autocracy. Meanwhile, Elphaba is now persona non grata and an enemy of the state, and is attempting to dismantle this propaganda machine by engaging in a kind of airborne warfare via her broom, disrupting construction on a vast infrastructure project involving some yellow brick. Take the M25 if it were built by a CG animal. The opening is fun and fast, establishing the literal witch hunt now dominating Jose. But it quickly becomes clear that the tone is different from that of the first film. Less peppy, more glum, with the exception of Goldblum, who appeared to be acting in his own film, delighting in Doorless. All the characters are much less cheerful than they were last time around, and as a result, it's less enjoyable for us to watch. Grant's Glinda does far less hair switching. Billy's Fioro replaces fatness with the broadness, and Erivo's Elphaba is having a full-on nervous breakdown. Even Elphaba's sister has done abrupt moral 180 or all over unrequited love for a mankin. Nobody seems allowed to have nearly as much fun this time. Compounding this tonal shifting is the fact that the songs are simply not as good. It was a problem on stage and is a problem on screen. No good deed is perhaps the highlight of genuine Belcher and an opportunity for Arrival to such her extraordinary lung capacity and to do it while flying Nas. But there is nothing close to defying gravity here. Not even a dancing through life. It's missing some dynamism, some energy. The two newly written songs are nice enough. Why do I love this place that does not love me? Feel politically trembling, but desperate of his. Wicked was good box office sensation when it was released in 2024. Fans of the long-running Broadway and West End musical flocked to see its cinema and took a staggering $758 million at the global box office. Those familiar with the musical found lots to enjoy, with director John M. staying mostly faithful to the iconic song, but now Wicked for Good is available to buy and rent digitally, ahead of the physical releases later this year. And it's fair to say if you are not a Wicked fan and or you think did not first time you are not going to like this one. Wicked for Good picks up after Elphaba's show-stopping rendition of Defying Gravity, and it's a darker film than the previous one. Some say that the second half of the Wicked musical is not as strong as the first, but I would argue that is not true. For Good is a very scene and that dominate the first half of the story as Elphaba and Glinda go on transformative journey. There are complexities with both a woman's story. Elphaba has become estranged from the sister Nessarose, who is essentially holding back. Against he will hoping that he will love her. Glinda is preparing to marry Fioro, unaware that his heart belongs not to her, but to Elphaba. Both of these storyline after plenty of soul searching, but it's Glinda that goes on the biggest journey. Realizing that she can't always get everything she wants and there is more to the world than her need. It's a harsh lesson to learn and is perfectly captured in The Girl in the Bubble, one of the two new songs features in the film. Some criticism leveled at the film attack is passing, but I think the films build nicely. It feels like the world we know from the first film, but the darker tone gives away to more original story that is punctuated by drama, surprises, and plenty of emotion. By the time Elphaba and Glinda come together to sing for good, I was a puddle to be honest. Those hoping to get a good look at Dorothy Gale may come away disappointed. Dorothy is in the film, along with her companion, but her role is very much fleeting. The songs are brought to life fantastically in Wicked for Good. As Long as You Are Mine, sung by Elphaba and Fioro, is one of my favorites, and the scene in the film is powerful and emotional. My standout of is No Good Deed, which Cynthia Erivo performs as Elphaba with incredible gusto, showing herself to be true powerhouse performer and an incredible actress. No Place Like Home is the other new song in the film, sung by Elphaba, and it fits in well with the rest of the song that fans will already know. The gem in the soundtrack, and for most people will be for good and Erivo and Grant make it a very emotional affair. The scene in the movie is beautiful, heartbreaking and catalytic. Erivo and Grant continue to impress with their acting ability. Erivo evokes a quiet power that builds over the course of the film, perfectly demonstrating the Alphaba's growth from shy and quiet to a woman who knows how to use the power she has been gifted. Grant leans into the comedy side of Glinda where she can, but she is required to showcase a wider range of emotion across the film, and she does so impressively. Jonathan Bailey gets more to do in this film, and he really establishing himself as one of the best actors to come out of the UK year. Wicked for Good is everything that fans waiting to be and more. The songs are spectacular, the performances are excellent, and the visuals are stunning. Yes, the film is on alongside, but it did not lose my attention for a minute. Now that Wicked for Good is available to buy, I can't wait to watch both films in one sitting and really immerse myself in the whole experience. This is the kind of film that cinema was made for. It's a triumphant adaptation of the beloved musical that lives up all expectation. The review contains spoiler for Wicked for Good. By now, you have heard the lament. In fact, that came shortly after the announcement in April 2022 that the movie adaptations of Wicked would be split into two parts, not quite on the middle by its two-act structure. By now, audiences have grown acclimated by fracted adaptations such as Harry Potter and That Allow, The Hunger Games and Mockingly, and Thriller Breaking Dawn, which took beloved VR novel and divided them into two pieces. Some of these decisions were made because fidelity to the story required a long runtime, while others were clear box office grab. When the debut of Wicked for Good is clear that Universal's picture will at least succeed in pulling off the latter, because it was the first of two-part Wicked. Part 1 was a dazzling, if ultimately unsatisfying first installment. All the best part of the Broadway musical storytelling were reserved for the epic first chapter. The oceans world building, the queer enemies to find, rom-com sexual tension between, and the Elphaba and of course the hard bought blood and filmmaking wise of the defying gravity. The musical's enduring grown jewel. Wicked don't tell a complete arc. It was hard to follow the magic it cast along the way to the midpoint. There was never a dull moment in the first installment. Yes, in that theory, it was constating that the 90-minute first act had bloated its way to near 3-hour runtime. But ultimately, the concern did not matter when the film successfully transported me. The same cannot be said about Wicked. For good, that's not exactly all the second part's fault. In terms of the storytelling, we know that after the climax of Defying Gravity, Everything that comes after is facing action. As stories went on, tensions began to release and the narrative stretches toward a resolution. Filing action is often narratively satisfying, watching how the pieces fall into place and how character change by a story's end. With Wicked for Good, however, it's clear that with the attention of the rising action to proceed it, all you are doing is watching puzzle pieces slot into their place. If the first installment promises to defy gravity, its second installment is nothing but sheer pieces finally succumbing into it, with even more unwelcome narrative blood, distending and distorting the music's final few beats. Wicked for Good began where the first installment left off. Elphaba and outcasts of from Oz continue plan to fetch the animal from the wizard. Evil machination while Glinda continue being a pawn for both the wizard and Madame Morrible. After Glinda springs a surprise engagement on her beauty, the film builds toward their wedding, which also happened to coincide with the failed trios between Elphaba and Wizard. Despite Wicked's second part feeling like a somewhat misgotten cash grab, most of the actors on screen are still very game for the material, especially given that the entire thing was shot on film. And of course, there is a George as what is stage musical. Wicked is mostly uninterested with its showing dirty and keeps it focused on a characters that most concern its narrative. When Dorothy must be on screen, her face remains obscured. Since we know from the Wizard of Oz happen either moment before Wicked catches up on to occur off screen, while the overarching narrative plows forward. Part of what earned Wicked for good most is that not only is the play's second act as a notorious fall from dizzying first act had, the music also pairs in a comparison. While some of its most unintended popular songs hail from the first act, hearing their melodies from the first film serves as a reminder of just how many joy trappers it has, and you can't help but wish you are watching this instead. The film's two new songs, No Place Like Home and Girls and Bubble, are mostly tuneless. The second act does contain incredible, no good deed, and emotional for good, both of which land very well. But there is As Long as You Are Mine, which is a great song that is entirely bogged down by the hashtagging. While interested the film for some reason, the film's two new songs, No Place Like Home and Girl in the Bubble, are mostly tuneless. The second act does contain the incredible No Good Deed and emotional for good, both of which land very well. But then it's As Long as You Are Mine, which is a great song that in the film is entirely bogged down by bad strategy. While Fiora undersays, the film for some reason dresses Elphaba up in a frumpy sex guardian. Is a former senior news editor and Tim. In the past, he has been a cineculture editor at The Atlantic, as well as a staff writer at Out magazine. Movie theaters could not be happier as the new Wicked brings some magic back to the 2025 box office. A Wicked for Good, their second film in 30-part movie adaptations of the hit Broadway musical, made its debut with a strong $150 million in North America this weekend, according to estimate from ComScore. The haul surpasses the $112 million domestic launch of the original Wicked movie, meaning for good, has set a new record for biggest opening weekend ever for a film based on a Broadway show. The record was previously held by the first Wicked. Wicked for Good also snatched the second biggest opening weekend of the year in North America. It came in a bite blow, a Minecraft movie, which opened with a $162 million in April, but above Lilo and Stitch, which took in $140 million in its first theater of release. The Disney live-action remake hit theater over the long Memorial Day weekend and debuted with $122 million, including Monday grosses. Ariana Grande reprises their Oscar-nominated role of Elphaba and Glinda, respectively in For Good, which picks up where the Broadway show's second act starts and wraps up the character stories while steering into the event of the Wizard of Oz. Critics were generally more mixed on For Good than the first Wicked, but Odyssey's reception appear to be comparable to the original. Movie's full body cinema score gave the Wicked for good an average grade of A, the same rating as 2024's Wicked. The film's success gave theatre a giant hit they were waiting for after a very quiet film movie season in recent months. Several titles have performed below expectation, from the Bruce Lee spring scene heroic sensation Deliver Me from Nowhere to Disney's latest Iron sequel, Tron Ares. Prior to For Good, the last movie to open with more than $100 million at the North American box office. But movie theaters won't have to wait long for more blockbuster. With a sequel to the animated and smash hit Zootopia, set to open November 26 for Thanksgiving weekend. Almost a decade after the original Disney movie, grossed more than $1 billion globally. That will be followed soon after by the highly anticipated Avatar Fire and Ash, James Cameron's second sequel to the highest grossing film, Avatar, 2009 Avatar. Another direct wicked sequel is not expected. The cast may still have one last stage where they can say goodbye to the two films. The 2026 Oscar. The first weekend received 10 nominations at Academy Award and Sins for Good feature. As I mentioned in my review of Wicked, the second chapter in the Reimagining the Wizard of Oz has set new box office record for North American and worldwide opening for a Broadway adaptation. Wicked for Good also has second biggest domestic debut of 2025 behind only a car Minecraft movie. $162 million read my interview with Wicked. Outside of simply Broadway Wicked for Good's freshman, Weekend is also a new record for any type of musical release in November. For Universal's Wicked for Good is especially important as the studio's second biggest domestic opening weekend of all time, behind only Jurassic World a decade ago. That's a strong positive word of mouth from audiences, with an A grade at cinema score and high recommend on top of 70% Rotten Tomatoes critical score and hoping a 95% score from verified audiences. That suggests at minimum a 3 to 5 final multiplier, already setting Wicked for good on a journey that lead to at least this $65 million final cum, and more likely north of $800 million as a moderate final estimate. However, the first weekend saw more than a $4.6 million final multiplier, so it for good can reach 4x, then we would see a total approaching $900 plus million, and we will have a good idea of whether that figure or something even higher is a card or not. Last year, the first weekend enjoyed a nice holiday boost that sent in note of its North American debut sale. I expected Wicked for good to cast a similar spell over Thanksgiving. Movies and fan, and to push the film toward $500 million and put a $900 million outcome in its sight. But if Wicked, for good should see larger weekly turnout, and if the international numbers continue space, then the film might make a run at $550 million through Thanksgiving weekend. And should it get an even if vicinity of $600 million, then $1 million is definitely on the table. As expected, the rest of the box office is slim picking. When you know you see me, now you don't looking a big drop off after a better than expected opening. Last weekend falling to less than $10 million domestic this frame. Theaters bought Badlands meanwhile is winding down and will do perhaps $500 million gives or take. Looking ahead, Thanksgiving sees the arrival of Disney's Zootopia 2. And while it will certainly pull down Q's numbers and add into the wicket, Fergus, Fergus target demographic. We have seen Apple prove that there is more than enough good advertisers will and dollars to go around when two big beloved films are available. Especially if there is a little also competing. Wicked for Good is well positioned and even if it wind up more front loaded than expected, it will still be a blockbuster hit at this point and most likely will match or exceed the performances of the first chapter. By how much remains to be seen, but for now the franchise can afford to sit back and is defying box office gravity once again. The movie musical has collected $147 million in North America and $76 million overseas for a dazzling $223 million global tally. Monday's finale tally was slightly behind Sunday's estimate of $150 million in North America and $226 million globally. Its bonfire theater since attendance has been seriously lagging since the summer. It's also a major one for Universal, which took a bold bet in splitting the popular stage show into the two parts, both of which needed to become major blockbusters to justify the expensive gamble. Wicked became a four-quadrant hit with $158 million globally, setting the stage for the second film to achieve juggernaut status as well. Zonem show directed the PG-rated Wicked for Good, which sees the return of Ariana Grande, Michael Yeoh, and Jonathan Bailey. The second Bob picks up as Elphaba. It's branded the Wicked with the West, and Glinda has become a public figure who sucks with his spreading good. Since the story overlaps with the Wizard of Oz, a number of familiar faces, including Dorothy Gale, the Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Cowardly Lion, making appearances down the yellow brick road. Audiences seem to be absolutely with the Wicked for Good, which earned the same A grade on Cinema Score. Exit poll as the first. Positive word of mouth will be helpful for staying power over the holiday season. Universal Wicked for Good essentially beat itself at the box office. Franchise's first half, that is last year, Wicked. Wicked for Good opened to the $147 million domestic and $223 million around the world. Besting Wickets, the pick from Plumhouse, Atomic Monster, and Morgan Creek still takes a prime spring break spot in 2027. Release date calendar, but that Universal and previously spec'd for an event film. The only other movie on that day is now Sony's animated Birds. Blumhouse confirmed that the Flanagan was going all in the Exorcist back in the May 2024. After his outsized success with series like The Fall of the House of Usher, Midnight Mass and The Haunting of Hill House, and films like Doctor Sleep, and most recently The Life of Jack. Soon after Johnson joined the cast, followed by Hammer Job, Flanagan's version has been billed as an all-new story and not connected to the world of the franchise or the latest Exorcist pick. 2023 is The Exorcist Believer, which grossed $65 million in North America and $126 million worldwide after NBC, Universal's Peacock, and the Blumhouse acquired rights from the Morgan Creek in 2021. The Exorcist is a Blumhouse Atomic Monster and Morgan Creek Entertainment production in association with the Red Room Picture. Producers are David Robinson, The Exorcist series, The Ringers series, Jason Blum. Universal's Wicked for Good, Wicked 2 made a big box office opening over the weekend. The $226 million global debut, outperforming forecast and setting multiple records for a Broadway musical adaptations. The sequel achieved stronger domestic and international results than the first installment, demonstrating the franchise's expanding global appeal. Wicked 2 generated $150 million from 415 North American theater, securing the number one spot and breaking the opening record previously held by 2024 Wicked, which debuted with $112 million. It's now stand as second biggest opening of the year, behind a Minecraft movie $162 million and ahead of Lilo and Stitch $146 million via deadline. Internationally, Wicked for Good collected $76 million across 78 markets, making a 13% increase over the first film and a bigger ever overseas and global opening for a stage musical adaptations. The sequel outperformed Wicked in every region, climbing plus 14% in EMEA, plus 15% in Asia Pacific, and plus 7% in Latin America. The UK led all overseas territories. With a standout $24 million, the film dominated 80% of the country's total box office, across to 750 million per screen, giving the biggest opening weekend of 2025 and the second largest debut over for a live action musical. It also became the first PG rated film to surpass $1 million in IMAX on the opening weekend. Wicked for Good, which continued the story of Elphaba and Glinda. As the wizard and Madams Moribund run, Ozzy engaged the newly branded Wicked Wizardry West. Draw on the audiences that was 71% female. Strong interest in the character, along with the franchise's popular soundtrack, is expected to drive repeat viewings variety. The film's success occurred during a slow period for the domestic box office. Comscore analyst Paul Gordy films outperformed much needed momentum boost, adding that it positions the industry for a stronger finish to the year, ahead of upcoming releases like Zootopia 2 and Avatar Fire and Ash. Other new releases struggle to find a footing. Sony Siso. A Road to Revenge opened to the $2.6 million, while Searchlight Rental Family debuted with a $3.3 million. Holdovers including Now You See Me, Predators, Badland, and The Running Man are part of the top 5. Wicked weeks again adaptations of the iconic Broadway musical is defying gravity and box office trend by achieving a historic milestone. Led by its magnetic stars Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. The film scored an incredible $81 million during its second weekend, setting a record for the highest grossing second weekend ever for a movie that did not hit the number one spot, despite Disney's Mona 2 stealing the spotlight with its massive debut. Wicked flew past some of the biggest second weekend all in history, including Incredibles 2, $80 million, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, $55.5 million. Directed by John M. Wicked has been since its release, now sitting at a domestic total of $263 million and a global haul of $359 million. The film is already the highest grossing Broadway adaptations ever at the domestic box office, surpassing the lifetime gross of the 1978's Graces. On the world chart, it was only Mamma Mia, Les Miserable, and Grease, and it will likely beat of all time. The $81 million second weekend puts Wicked in a light company, as it now leads to the all over, could not quite reach to the top spot. Now that is something to be ashamed of, given a name on his list. Universal Pictures definitely needed Wicked to do well, not just because of its blockbuster number, but also due to its hefty price tag. The concluding part of the story will be released next year, and if this one had bombed harder, then Elphaba debut of her pointy. Had a club where we were fam, they would have been worried. The two-part saga comes with a reported combined production cost of $300 million, excluding the studio's marketing plots. The second installment, set to release in 2025, will chronicle the latter half of the Broadway show. Universal is counting on the first film to surpass Mamma Mia, unless miserable on the global chart. But given the critical acclaim, the off-scale audience's feedback, and an almost granted Oscar winning campaign to come, they won't have much to worry about on that front. Wicked is playing in theater now. Stay tuned for more on Wicked Part 2. The songs may not be as catchy this damn time around, but Wicked for Good really sings where it can't count. Will the emotional ache of the fractured friendship at the story's core are tactical. Marvel remains dazzling in place from director John M. First half of Wicked, based on the Broadway musical phenomenon, which came out just over 1 year ago. That included the elaborate production design from Norton Crowley and the executing costuming from Paul Tazewell, both Oscar winner for Part 1. If you enjoyed all that and hope to see more of it, don't you worry. The darker tone that marks this weekend, how does not mean there is an absence of wonder in the wonderful land of Ozzy, but the real special effect comes from the deeply felt performances from Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. As a friendship, as we saw in the first film, the green-hued outsider and the pink-clad popular girl would not seem to have much in common, but they truly saw each other as so many else ever had. The way they locked eyes wordlessly on the dance floor was unexpectedly stirring, and because part everyone laid the groundwork so convincingly, the fact that a bond break in part 2 is as much more meaningful. Previously on Wicked, Erivo's Elphaba flew out to make the guys on her broomstick, singing the soaring defying gravity, which marked the end of the Act 1 of the stage production. Winnie Holzman and Anna Fox once again wrote the screenplay based on the Holzman's musical book, and Gregory. During her absence, Faroese, Glenda's vision for goodness has taken full effect. It's are colorful and joyful, but once again discerning actual lyrics in a big ensembles number can be a challenge. The guidance Glenda's execute when Madam's Moribel delivered a bubble that became her signature from one transportation is delight and a great example of Grandy's impeccable, calming, charming, and infection energy. The soft drinks and creams for her art. Jaco suggests Glinda has told herself she's doing the right thing by hitching that bubble to the wizard, irritatingly unconscious again, despite his obviously authoritarian intentions. This much is clever, even before he sings wonderfully, a razzle dazzling ditty about how it feels good to feel good. Truth be damned, while the characters of the Wizard of Oz has been around for over a century, watching a popular scumble to a Hexer store hits differently these days, and a flashback to a childhood birthday party where Scarlet Spear plays a young Glenda in a perfect bed. Reveals she's always been a bit of fraud herself, but she fused that fact with her unstoppable try-hard attitude. Jonathan barely feels understand here as Prince Pharaoh. Let me man show of his musical theater chops, but he conveys a lot of through the slightest shift in his facial expression to reveal his skepticism about marrying Glinda and becoming a high-profile figure in her increasingly powerful platform. The floor explosion after the spectacular wedding ceremony reflects Chio's master of scale. Fiora reminded Glinda that didn't know the true Elphaba nor the verified figure she has become. How Glinda and Elphaba strive to salvage their friendship while also being pulled apart by society expectations provide the film's tension and spine. Elphaba figures if everyone assume she may as well as lean into that. The song is which she come to the realization, no good yet. It's really a showstopper, an excellent showcase for Avi's powerhouse, vocal and an impressive visual set pieces. Meanwhile, Glinda's big solo number, The Girl in the Bubbles, one of two new tune veteran composers Stephens wrote for the movie, gives Grant a chance to be big up dramatically as her character confront of the choices she's made. The long, fluid camera work from Kyo's frequent cinematographer, Alice Brock. He is constantly clever and inventive during this song. If it sounds like this, the second half is a darker than the first. It is, but it's also more effective in its consistency of tone. Wicked was all fun and games until it was not, and a sudden shift was daring. In for good. We know from the start that they were all in more serious territory with a deep staring of Johann Powell's score as ocean worker built a yellow brick road. Along these lines, much of the second film focuses on introducing beloved characters and the familiar images from the original Wizard of Oz. So you are into the Lord, there are goodies in store for you. Arto casting an actor with his stature of Coleman Domingo as the voice of the Cowardly Lion, and yet only giving him a couple of lines of dialogue is a shameful waste. Still, what you will remember is the way you will feel at the end, with the joke that gives the film its title. Arivo and Grant finds just the right amount of tenderness and sadness with F for good, and the bond between them shine bright once more. Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo can sing. That part is not a for debate. Visually, this film delivers exactly what you expect from a giant Hollywood fantasy production. Bright, immersive, over the top world building that feels like stepping straight into OC. The color grading is lush, the sets are gorgeous, and the costuming pulls you even deeper into the fantasy. As much as the film sparkles on the outside, it's got some crack in the foundation. There are plot holes scattered throughout the second installment, and if we try up one major storyline from the first film, feels lazy. They basically toss an answer at you like, here, take it, without any setup or a bread scam along the way. I was genuinely annoyed. You can't eat something that big in the first movie and then slam the door shut without it doing the work. There's a surprising amount of crying in this movie. My sister came out of the theater, straight up annoyed by it. I was not exactly bothered, but I totally got what she meant. It's emotional overload at times, and not always in a purposeful way. Here is my biggest pet peeve. The song in this half of the story don't hit the way they should. Not a single banger, no standout number, nothing that makes you want to replay it on the ride home. And I like of the choreography. Will to me. This is wicked. I grew up on Grace and Grace too. I need a let's ball. Let's ball, let's rock and roll. I need an examples breaking into a Sinusoidal magic. I need something but here. The musical vibe is so toned down that honestly forgot I was even watching a musical. It felt like a movie with a few emotional songs sprinkled in nothing more. I am landing at 3 out of 5 stars. For Wicked for good, it's good, it's entertaining enough, and definitely worth seeing if you are already invested in the story or you are a huge Ariana or fan. Would I watch it again? Probably not. This review contains spoiler for Wicked for Good. By now you have heard the elements. In fact, they came shortly after the announcement in April 2022 that the movie adaptations of Wicked would be split into two parts. In April 2022, that the movie adaptations of Wicked would be split into two parts, not quite on the middle by its two-act structure. By now, audiences have grown accustomed to adaptations such as Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows, The Hunger Games films Mockingly, and Twilight Breaking Dawn, which took beloved YA novels and divided them into two pieces. Some of these decisions were made because fidelity to the story required a longer runtime, while others were clear box office grab. With the debut of Wicked for Good, it's clear that Universal Pictures will at least succeed in pulling out the latter. Because it was at the best part of the Broadway musical storytelling were reserved for the epic's first chapter. The Ocean world building, the queer enemies to France rom-com sexual tensions between Arincha and the Elphaba. A Wicked did not tell a complete arc. It was hard to follow the magic it caused along the way to the midpoint. There are never a dull moment in the first installment. Yes, in theory. The same cannot be said about Wicked for Good. That's not exactly all the second part's fault. In terms of storytelling, we know that after the climax of defying gravity, everything that comes after is failing action as stories went on. Tensions began to release and its narrative stretches toward a resolution. Falling action is often narratively satisfying. Watching how the pieces fall into place and how characters change by a story's end. With Wicked for Good. However, it's clear that with all intentions of the rising action to appreciate it, all you are doing is watching puzzle pieces slot into their place. If the first installment promised to be defy gravity, a second installment is do nothing but just pieces finally succumbing into it, with even more unwelcome narrative plot, descending and distorting the musical's final few beats. Wicked for Good began where the first installment left off Elphaba, and outcasts from OC continue plan to raise the animal from the wizard, while Glinda continue being a pawn for both the wizard and Madam's Morrible. After Glinda brings a surprise engagement on her bio, the films build toward their wedding, which also happened to coincide with a failed through between Elphaba and the wizard. Despite Wicked's second part feeling like a somewhat misbegotten cash grab, Most of the actors on screen are still very game for the material, especially given that the entire thing was shot as one film. The caliber of the performances are on par with what came before. Grand still the show, with her first half plunkiness giving way to new depth as she wrestles with her newfound political power. Arivo continued to bring her signature stamp to the show song, finding layered meaning in lyrics we have here reinterpreted whether on Broadway or at Heroic Night Countless Time. And of course, there is a note as with the stage musical. Wicked is mostly uninterested in showing Dorothy and keeps it focused on the character. That most concern is narrative. When most be on screen, her face remains obscured. Scene we know from the Wizard of Oz happy at a moment before Wicked catch up, or the occur off screen while the overarching narrative flows before forward. Part of what hurts Wicked for Goody most is that not only is the play's second act a notorious fall from the saying first act height, the music also pale in comparison. While some of its most fun-intended popular songs hail from the first act, the second act contained a number of reprise. Carrying the melodies for the first film serves as a reminder for just how many toy trapper it has, and you can't help but wish you were watching that instead. The film's two new song, No Place Like Home and Girl in the Bubble, are mostly Dreamland. The second act does contain the incredible, No Good Deed, and emotional for good, both of which land very well. But then there is As Long as You Are Mine, which is a great song that, in the film, is entirely bogged down by the bags digging. While Furor undersells the film for some reasons, that's Elphaba in a frumpy sex guardian. Perhaps the frumpy guardian is the best possible metaphor for the film as a whole. The film should be flying, but it's instead bogged down by the rate while dropping. Is our former senior news editor Adam. Because it was the first of two parts, Wicked Part 1 was a dazzling, if ultimately unsatisfying first installment. All the best part of the Broadway musical storytelling were reserved for the epic first chapter. The audience world building, the queer enemies to friends, rom-com sex tension between the Lanta and Elphaba, and of course the height, plot and filmmaking, wise of defying gravity. The musical's enduring gross jewel. Wicked did not tell a complete arc. It was hard to follow the magic. It caused a long way to the midpoint. There was never a dull moment in the first installment. Yes, in theory, it was concerning that a 90-minute first act had bloated its way to near 3 hour runtime. But ultimately, that concern did not matter when the film successfully transported me. The same cannot be said about Wicked for Good. That's not exactly all the second part's fault. In terms of storytelling, we know that after the climax of defying gravity, everything that come after its failing action, as stories went on, tension began to release and the narrative stretches. The best thing about the 2024 movie Wicked was that it ended after some 2.5 hours of debuts. Wizard of Oz, story and politics, and digitally selected song and dance factor, the director Johanna brought a certain tone on a high note, soaring on a boomstick over the Emerald City. Elphaba, trophy green of flesh, pointy of head, unfailingly pure of heart, ascended to the peak of her magical power and struck fear into her enemies. I am flying high, defying gravity. She sang while also flying in the faces of the wizard of Oz, a humbug and complicated Frenam, Glinda, a woman with a pastel pink styling and a moral coverage of a forested cupcake. Wicked for Good is the Ariana Grande's movie, and if you know it, bending toward her every chance it gets. If the first Wicked centered Elphaba, the shy outcast was discovery of her magical power and a sinister machinery. Behind the land of Oz led to her being branded the Wicked Witch of the West. Wicked for Good focuses attentively on her opposite number and best friend. Galinja now possession by power, that be as a goal but secretly powerless, which who can keep the people happy and placated as their worlds collide into the paranoid dictatorship. Many of those wicked outsnatched were understandably curious about how splitting the story into two movies would function. It's a quicker, looser, more fragmented. Delaying first not just on what happened in the first half, but also when references to the original was Wizard of Oz. A shocking amount of the pictures plays out in Granda's face, and the actress is one of the most photographed later about obsessed over women on the planet. A shocking amount of the pictures plays out on Granda's face, and the actress is one of the most photographed writer. Now Grand realizes Granda's demure little chin gives her perfect posture, and her skip dance footwork as elegant expression of a gathering inner turmoil. She still loves Elphaba and secretly wants her to succeed. Glinda has been co-opted by the Craven's wizard and its niece Madame Morrible into serving as a kind of floating and brand ambassador for the prepared Aussie rosinated princess who itself as option fueled her cruelty in the first film. Glinda now starts to question her choices. A flashback shows her as a young girl, enhanced by the idea of making people happy and being liked as she slowly realizes that she can't always be people pleaser. We get a surprisingly relatable portrait of what eventually forces us all into dark corner. Garinda becomes a full-blooded character and wicked, for good and an often heartbreaking one. Arivo burned brightly in the first film, but Elphaba has already entered the realm of myth as wicked. Fargo starred. Giant banner warm about the terror seized allegedly. Spreading she lead acts of the resistance in heroic Silhouette. Swords are special wicked wish. Addition of producer. She sees the writer's sad avenging angel. And Erivo brings the vulnerability and to Alphabet's tendency. Her rebellion has not liberated her. It's just left her feeling like more of a parrot. There's almost zero chemistry. Her between her and Captain Fioro. The forever punk on the first film, whose secret love for Elphaba is compromised both by his imminent wedding to Glinda and by the fact that he knew leaves the patrol trying to smoke the wicked wit out. But maybe that lack of chemistry is international. They are both ostensibly in love with the Fioro. Glinda and Elphaba are too connected to one another for any man to truly come between them. In case it's not yet clear, Wicked for Good is an altogether darker movie than Wicked Part 1, and that's welcome development, as anyone who sees the plays know. Some of the supporting character will become legendary companion, and Chu has a good time with these information with sequences, turning them into the creepy little moment of body horror. Ethan's latter Landsborg, the once love-struck Monken, and embittered Mansford in a nice snare of savagery. In keeping with tradition, the film is unafraid of its political moment. Gregory Maguire's 1995 novel was partly inspired by the Gulf War, and it was on three-stage musical by the aftermath of the September 11 and the imminent invasion of Iraq. Now, as we watch the creature of Ozzy being stripped of their voices and their right, we hear distinct echoes of her real world, but is sensibly playful. Metaphor can bring hollow or go riches quite quickly. You might remember Jim Cooper trying to push Cat as a warning about the perils of tribalism, and as much as I might have briefly entertained the notion of the Jew going full on Battle of Algiers with his sequel, Wicked for Good's embarrasses its allegorical qualities, just long enough for them to be unmistakable, and that is about as far as takes thing probably to credit. For all the speechifying, a body people and animal opposite, and how their fates hang in balance of his conflict. Neither Wicked movie has even given a sense of what this world really feels like. Sure, we have the bright color and the cool castle, and the sweeping wizard and that yellow brick door we see being built in this room. A brutal constructions project intended to consider the wizard's dominance, but the citizens of this world remain reduced to crowd, and in away there are still three mostly to punctuate story prompts. These new pictures insolently become obvious the trend. I admitted in my review of the first weekend that the songs of the show have never done much of me, and that goes double for the second film, which offers even forever memorable. The slow stopping numbers of Broadway, where the mechanics of making life human to look like they have taken flight can still impress us, can become meaningless when carried over to movie screen. Interestingly, this time around, director Chu Sims has less interested in staging epic sequences and choreographing ambitious dance sequences, opting instead for an old school intimacy with his musical number. Less West Side Story, more Meet Me in the Asylonist, and even though their pop cultural status requires them to be diverse, the two stars are actually better suited to minor keys. They are more than Belter. All this is not only keeps Wicked for good from feeling like a rehearse, but it also fills out the drama. It would be silly to call this new movie quiet. It's so totally not built it together, more somber, more focused, more human than the first one, and it brings the Wicked cycle to a surprisingly satisfying conclusion, at least for now. The doubt that surfaced when it was first announced that John M. chose screen adaptations of Wicked was to be released in two parts are not exactly erased by the 2 hour plus of the second installment, but is safe to assume he millions of fans who have made the blockbuster sales. Musical a global phenomenon won't be complaining sure. All but one of the show's most memorable songs are in the first act, but the investment in characters, story and computers design more than compensate in Wicked. For good, which again shows that casting stellar, vocal talent, Erivo and Ariana Grande was a master class. Even if the combined two parts totaling almost 5 hours are a lot, there is lovely symmetry to the fact that while the opener very much belonged to Arivo's misunderstood, green-skinned Aussie outcast, Elphaba, the follow-up for grounded her, erstwhile remains his stunned friend Glinda, brought to be luminous life by Grant. Make no mistake, Arivo remains a powerhouse, with powers that slake the heaven and a wellspring of unforced emotional intensity that never runs dry. The paradox is even more apparent that despite Alphabe's infamy as a so-called wicked witch of the West, the inherent kindness of the fairness in her position to the cruel but Grant's considerate blonde bubble head gains a stature here as Glinda assumes statesmanlike responsibility to spread goodness in Ozzy, while experiencing crushing romantic disappointment that humbled her and deflated her vanity. Grant has been acting since she was a kid, and her quiet moment of the introspection, anxiety, or sadness show the under depth, as does her loyalty to the Elphaba. She reveals plucky strength and the resourcefulness to match Elphaba's unbreakable backbone when she starts seeing through the scheming of Madame Morrible, who emerges as the real despotic power player, not the empty vessel wizard. He is a lightweight and he knows it, especially compared to the ruthless Morrible. More than ever, the musical becomes a story of mutually nourishing sisterhood. Galinda's sorcery may be manufactured rather than a natural gift like Elphaba, but her heart is genuine, often seeming to be burst out of the chest in crystalline vocal colored by as much vulnerability as sweetness. When Erivo and Grant toward the end are for good. ease into the stirring title song, and soar into gorgeous, harmonious, celebrating the reward of love and sport. The young woman in the row behind me at a distant press screening started sniffing and sobbing their dear, then falling on and off through the entire final act. That kind of reaction to nod or cannot intimate familiarities with the material, but the screenplay by Vinnie Holzman and Indiana Fox, based on the Holzman's book for the show from the novel by Gary Graham McHugh, adds its emotion with the more sincerity, working its way back to the first movie opening, in which Glinda descended on the impressive, magical, in fact motorized, over to declare our dead. The story picks up as the exiled Elphaba's verification reaches new height, banners painting her as monster to be feared, and loaded hang all over, with Moribel using both witchcraft and plain old propaganda to fuel that narrative. The demonstration of uterness that has become such a staple of the contemporary political landscape has reached its apotheosis, with animals formally an integral and respected part of the OC society, now treated as inferior beings requiring special permit to travel. Decomposition is not far behind. Elphaba encounters a large group of the animal attempting to flee through the wood to be mysterious place beyond OC. Even its the return to be just empathies them for their exhaust with one of no you songs written by composer Stephen for the movie. No place like home. Erivo delivers it with inspirational fervor and warned even if the number is a generic show done compared to Wicked Bass Loud Banger. That forecast introduced has introduces the Cowardly Lion, the first of the three beloved sidekick from those Wizard of Oz whose origin are outlined here. Horsemen and Focus find clever ways to interact their story with that of a Frank Baum novel and in 1939 MGM musical. Dirty and Toto are glimpsed repeatedly from a distance without ever being fully seen or heard, but it transparently can us from Gertrude should she make her presence felt in all kinds of meddlesome ways. Some of the funniest moments involves Grant's reaction to element from the dramas. Judy Garland vehicle. I swear it never ends with the dead girl. Remakes and exasperated Glenda's as Dorothy take off in a hot air balloon. And when Elphaba lets loose an unmistakable Margaret Hamilton cracker, Glinda rolls her eyes, asking what was that. The biggest connection between the canonical story and the sea removes sake as variation of plot details pertaining to the tornado that lifted the Dorothy's home out of canals and robbed it down in the love strangle of Glinda, Elphaba and Fioro, newly appointed captain of the guards assigned by Moribel to hunt down and capture the Green Barrier, acquires resonant dimension that fortify all three characters and deepen the performances. The rise of Elphaba, essential sister to goddess of Oz, which speaks her relationship with the monkey's book, feels a little rush to flesh out her better balance of the wicked word of his title, but deserves to explain the existence of the term man, just as later development usually in the Scarecrow. Among the sporting performances, seeing her treat into the moribund's manipulative shadow villainy, her singing has gotten even worse. Goldblum makes a wizard a self-serving but somehow charming character, even if no actor is ever going to make an eyebrow-raising later revelation about the characters any easier to swallow. Bailey brings new gravitas and honor to Fioro, downplaying the characters formally. Side and People magazine's recent coronation of the actor in 2025 later taps into a movie vein of Sauron's book, and both shows a silly side and then conflicts painfully with what Hart want. As in the first movie, the attention to eye-popping detail in Nathan Crowley's spectacular production design and Paul wildly imaginative costume is key to this disarming conviction player, captured in an infinite rainbow of colors and gradations of light by Elias Brook cinematography. If the camera whirling around character, a song is our studios device. It's nonetheless fits with the design effect of the material on the most ardent fan. Likewise, the tendency of Chu to overstaff the frame, notably in scene of him in OCVD needlessly, basic choreography filling the margin is easily forgivable. The lush of this tune gives the movie explained visual dimension to match its visual, and the use of underscoring is superb, picking up musical theme that nod back to the previous film. The outcome of Elphaba and Glinda, as anyone who has seen the show will know, is bittersweet, but the most illuminating the takeaway from For Good is the newfound maturity, leadership, insight, and even perhaps as a burgeoning understand of magic is former absence described by Moribel as her deficiency. Part of that is due to the movie's other new song, The Girl in the Bubble, the number of itself. Like Elphaba's No Place Like Home. It's not top tier, but it serves a purpose. Glinda's song provides ultimate access in a moment of the personal crisis, as it takes an honest look at her priorities and privilege while locating her moral compass. Grand flirts into will sub-feeling that it humanizes and enriches the character and extensions the whole movie. Wicked is an enormously popular multimedia franchise with millions of fans around the world and over the rainbow. But I feel extremely comfortable seeing my two daughters, aged 9 and 8 years old, are into 2% of obsessive wicked super nerd. They have wicked dolls and brooms and a pointed hat. They sing wicked song while cleaning their room, or driving to visit their grandparent, or pretty much any time. There are 6 or 7 consecutive quiet seconds in our house. My youngest had a wicked dreamed day before the Broadway musical about which is supposed to become a movie. They performed What Is This Feeling together at a school's talent show less appearing in costume and green face paint. They saw Wicked for good on November 17, 2025, exactly 1 year from when they saw Wicked. In the 365 days in between, I doubt 5 went by without some sort of acknowledgement of the movies or the show or the visit of OC. So while I have my own thought about the sequel's quality, the review most wanted to hear here is trailer. Know that my kids are starting to get older. I love taking them to press screening with me, and even more than that, I love talking to them afterwards about the movies we see. Our conversations are so fun and interesting that I have begun recording them at first, now with their full knowledge, and sharing them. What follows is a lightly edited transcript of the conversation between me, the girls, and my wife, who is the only person I know who enjoys Wicked more than our daughter. Director M. John pulls off quite a trick with his manageably proportioned second half to the epic musical prequels meets inspired by the Wizard of the Ocean base, of course, on the hit sales show. It gives the rainbow-colored dreamlines and the Broadway show tunes things as for part 1, and we still get those periodic serial given by the cities notable to the devices folk of OC. Those non-player characters creating this trade, but now the focus narrowed to the main player and its explosive romantic races. Essentially true to interlocking love triangle. Galinda the Good, Elphaba the Wicked, and the Wizard, and Galinda Elphaba and the Prince Pharaoh, the handsome young military officer, with whom both wishes are not so security and love, as well as possibly having feeling for each other. Jeff Goldblum is excellent as a wizard, who pretty much becomes a dad wizard of OC, a slippery carnival huckster who is realizing that his acidic charm is corroding his soul. Jonathan Bailey pivots to a much more serious, less campy, more passionate Prince and Ariana Grande is as ever delicate and doll-like and Glinda, with as less opportunity for comedy. But the superstars among equal is Erivo, bringing her back belt screen presence to the role of Elphaba and revealing a new vulnerability and maturity. Elsewhere, Marissa Bode returned as Elphaba's wheelchair using self-sister. Arden Slater is Bogda, working as her servant, and Michael Yeoh brings deadly sweetness to the role of the wizard's privately secretly Madame Morrible. We finished the last movie wondering what can art happen when the action has to come up against the narrative present. How the prequel would do dovetail with what we know of the actual wizard of Oz film. If Elphaba's perceived evil is just practical society, dominating her differentiate, then how are they all going to play her final combat support and weakness? And if Glinda's reporters her, will it just look heartless? Well, if we manage all this with a great deal of tragic brio, slightly altered is the appearance of Dorothy itself, carried into Ozzy in the Harkness Dragon's Warland, and even Ted kicks us the final act. Her eventual companionship, the Cowardly Lion, the Tin Man, and the Scarecrow all get in their various way. Little audition in a Marvel or DC universes, each little reveal in fact reminded me of Robin's emergencies in The Dark Knight Rises. But a story which you might give us a few moments minutes before it happened is widely mutual, and if it's clear how or why the Sekiro is lacking a brain in the way the loin and the chin man are lacking coverage and a heart. Is tangled and a bite bewildering burden so soldier film, in which we never know better to believe in the wizard final benediction. John M. Wicked made over $750 million at the box office. It won two Academy Awards for Best Costume Design and Best Production Design, and its existence of the limited Wicked embossed Lee chaoses is any indication probably. The film is an alternative takes on an iconic story, showing how the wicked witch and Glinda, the good and the turtle in the Wizard of Oz, suggesting that Dorothy had no idea what was really going on behind the scene. The twist ending to Wicked for good reframe Dorothy's journey through Oz as an opportunity for Elphaba to change her fate, creating the legend of the Wicked Witch and Glinda the Good. The film opens sometime after the ending of Wicked, with Elphaba and Glinda having chosen side and separated. Glinda is now an agent of friendly face Tyrant, the Wizard of Goldbrum, and is given a mechanical, seemingly magical bubble that allows her to fly. To fool the Munchkins into the thinking she really is a witch, a good witch no less. Elphaba is a rebel on the run, working to liberate the animal of Oz, who are being rounded up and processed under the wizard. Her reputation as a wicked witch of the West is firmly commented at this point. An inhabitant of Oz have convinced themselves that she can be killed by the purity of water. Elphaba keeps using her magic to perform good deed, only to see them backfire horribly. When attempting to make her disabled sister fly by enchanting her slipper, Elphaba drives away her love bug, and when Nessa tries to capture his heart magically, the spell goes wrong and his heart shrinks. To save him, Elphaba transforms his flesh into metal, into a being who can live without a heart. The Tin Man. Things seem to take a turn after Elphaba is convinced by the wizard to join forces, but the union immediately falls apart from she uncovered his secret animal prison. Right after he pledged to stop compressing the creature of Oz, Dorothy is gifted the silver slipper by Glinda and told to seek the device of the wizard. Elphaba, devastated by her sister's death, feels betrayed by Glinda's giving away the slipper. The two fight until Fiora and troop of the god break it up. Fiora is in the middle of love triangle between the two, but he firmly chooses Elphaba. threatening Glinda's life to save his love. As Elphaba flies away, he grappled by guard beaten half to death. Elphaba, now joined by the winged monkey, reads a strange spell from the graveyard to protect Fiora's body from harm and unknowingly turns him into a scarecrow. Giving reeling from constant betrayal and Venetian's alphabetic breaks bad and embarrassing settle of wicked ways, hoping to get her sister's slippers back. Meanwhile, Dorothy and her friends have been tasked with killing the wicked witch, and they feel an angry mob is waiting for Elphaba. Seeking to warn her, Glinda enters Elphaba's castle to find Dorothy, held captive by Elphaba. The two share their final conversation and realizes how their friendship has changed them for the better. And Elphaba realizes that her evil reputation is too far gone to come back. Glinda hides and Elphaba faces Dorothy, who throws a bucket for water, seemingly melting her into a puddle. Glinda is devastated, left with only the Gremiers and a final request from Elphaba to behave as a good witch and keep the legend of the wicked witch alive. Glinda is given a mysterious green bottle by a flying monkey, and she suddenly understands why Elphaba was born green. She confronts a wizard who remembers giving the Elphaba mother the potion, and he realizes that he is Elphaba father. Glinda sends away the wizard in shame and vows to rule over Ozzy as a god witch. Unknown to Glinda, Elphaba is not really dead, having relied on the weakness of water. Made to save her own death, hiding under a trapdoor until his Scarecrow, otherwise known as a Furor, realizes her. She is shocked to see what her spell did to him, but her love has demonstrated to flee Ozzy to a secret tunnel, emerging through the desert that surrounds Ozzy in search of a new life. Elphaba looks back as the Gremiers magically slip its page and open for Glinda, who smiles. There is a certain ambition guilty to see him, and Elphaba seemed to know what happened, and perhaps was even responsibility for pages flipping. It's tempting to think that Elphaba might have used her magic to open the book, sending Glinda is a worthy of being her magical successor. However, Elphaba laments during her voiceover that she can never let Glinda know the truth. It seems likely that the book is opening for Glinda to mark her new role as magical leader of Ozzy. All Glinda ever wanted was truly magical. Like Elphaba, and Gamera seem to be accepting her as a witch. Either way, there is a new chapter ahead of a bad character, with Glinda's ego ruling over the land of Ozzy, and Elphaba feeling to new revolt with Furo. Glinda hides Elphaba faces Dorothy, who throws a bucket of water, seemingly melting her into a puddle. Glinda is devastated, left with only the Greybear and a final request from Elphaba to behave as a good witch and keep it legend of the wicked witch alive. Glinda is given mysterious green bottle by a flying monkey, and she suddenly understands why Elphaba was born green. She confronts the wizard, who remembers giving Elphaba's mother the potion, and he realizes that he is the Elphaba father. Glinda sends away the wizard in shame and vows to rule over Ozzy as a good witch. Unlike Elphaba, Glinda has no magical talent. She is not really a witch, despite desperately wanting to be. But she does have the Grimoire. Unknown to Glinda, Elphaba is not really dead, having relied on the weakness to water, made to save her own death, hiding under a trap until the Scarecrow